just for your audience to really define the electric vehicles, you have your hybrid vehicles. So for us, there's a Ford Fusion hybrid, right? The Escape hybrid you could buy them today, and it's a combination of having batteries and a gasoline engine. You run off the battery as much as possible. It has no plug to recharge the battery, but what it has, Josh, is actually the more you stop, the brakes actually when you brake, you charge the battery, which is called regenerative braking, so you get better fuel economy because you're running more off the battery than off the engine. That's a hybrid. What we have here is a plug-in hybrid that you could actually plug the battery in. You could drive like 30 miles just on electric, and then when you run out of that battery juice, the vehicle runs like a hybrid where you're charging the battery with the brakes. And then you have your pure battery electric, Josh, where there's no engine at all. It's just batteries. You have to plug it in. That will take you about 100 miles, but after that 100 miles, you have to find a plug to keep it going, right? There's no engine to kick in to keep it going. So those are the differences.
But still, considering, I mean, in 100 miles, 100 years ago, people paid big money, a lot of time to move themselves 100 miles. That's further than most of us travel 99% of the time with our vehicles. So that's actually pretty impressive, John, that you can get 100 miles out of these batteries now.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's one of the selling points for battery electric vehicles. They say the average American drives like 40 miles round trip a day. So for your average American, that works for them. I think where the concern, Josh, is that you maybe like me oftentimes need to go more than 100 miles for the occasional trip, right? And so for those folks, that's why we think the plug-in would make sense, because you're running on batteries for the first 30 miles, but if you have to go, let's say, longer distances, you have that ability too.
Which ends up being more efficient? The one that does cogenerative, or you said it's regenerative charging?
Yep.
On a cost of, we're talking the liquid fuel, all right, which one ends up being better miles per gallon?
Well, better miles per gallon is going to be your electric versions are going to be better miles per gallon.
You mean by electric versions this one? You're talking about the non-cogenerative? When you say electric, you mean...
That's a great question. So when I talk about the electric versions, I talk about all of them. The cogenerated or the regenerative braking, that's an electric version. The plug-in hybrid, which is engine, but you also plug in the battery, and then the pure battery electric. Those are all electrified versions.
Right. And speaking of these hybrid ones, I'm really curious about this hybrid technology. Which ends up using less miles per gallon? This one, or which is, I would call it what you called a plug-in hybrid,
right,
or the one that is non-plug-in but does indeed employ an electric assist system that is cogeneratively or regeneratively powered by torque sensors, by whatever, going downhill and using brakes. Which one actually, using liquid fuels, ends up being more efficient, do you think?
Well, probably from a more, I would say that the plug-in is probably more efficient, because if you take let's say you take 3 trips, maybe 2 in a day, maybe 2 of your trips you could just use electric, so your miles per gallon equivalent will be huge. And 1 trip you have to kind of kick in the gasoline. On a regenerative braking hybrid, you're always using a combination of battery and gas, so your miles per gallon isn't going to be as good. The difference, Josh, is the traditional hybrid that uses regenerative braking is quite a bit less expensive than the plug-in and the battery electric. So while the fuel price is cheaper, you're paying a pretty significant price up front for those plug-in versions.
The plug-in version is considered a privileged vehicle, you would say, and in the elite family here of non-fossil fuel powered vehicles?
That's a great question, because one of the concerns that we have is that we don't want the plug-in vehicles to be an elitist vehicle. But the problem is that initially, when they first come out, since the cost is going to be high, we probably see the higher income levels buying it. Our job as Ford Motor Company, like what Henry Ford did, is to provide vehicles to the masses, is to bring that cost of the electric vehicles down so it's not an elitist vehicle. So great question.
Do you see that realistically happening in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, you've got a lot of common sense out there. Most of the scientists of this planet telling us, guys, we've run out of time.